How long have we known each other? Maybe almost 30 years? And I've been waiting for this day for you to be driving me around. I always knew you'd be driving me
around.
This week, I don't have Yolanda with me.
Watch that car, watch that jogger.
But I've got my longtime friend, Detective Alan Brown, to help us look into one of the most horrific murders we've ever seen. So we're talking about a 9-year-old case?
9 years, yeah.
Everybody in the town knows about it?
His family's well known here.
We're in Paducah, Kentucky to look into the 2006 murder of 81-year-old Dr. Frank Shimwell, the town's beloved doctor. On the afternoon of July 24th, Frank's wife Penny got home to find the house on fire, soot in his lungs, which means that he literally burned alive. I can't think of a more horrible way to die.
I can't even imagine. So the first uphill battle with this scene, obviously, is fire. Arson cases are hard to investigate because any physical evidence you might have had literally has gone up in smoke. It's a big reason this case is still unsolved.
The death of Dr. Frank Shimwell is surrounded by questions. He'll be sadly missed by his family and many, many friends.
This is the kind of case that's all about trying to find the proper witnesses, which is what we have to do this week. It seems like everybody in this whole town knew and loved Dr. Shimwell. Hopefully they can help us piece together what happened and we can figure out whoever it was that committed this cold-hearted, evil act.
It has been 16 years and still no answer.
Police consider her killing a cold case.
Years later, the case is still unsolved.
There are so many cold cases out there just waiting to be solved.
The crime scene ultimately tells the story of the murder.
We want to bring justice to these victims.
You get that for you there, man. Morning.
Hi.
Hi. Kelly? Brian Laird.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Troy Turner.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Chief Martin Hill?
Chief Alan Brown.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Alan.
Thank you
Good
very
morning.
much for inviting us.
You're welcome. Yeah, we appreciate you coming to Kentucky and see what we can get you worked out on this case.
When Dr. Shimwell was murdered, it had a pretty big impact just because he was a local physician and the fact that he's 81 years old. I think that everybody within the community, especially the people that knew Dr. Shimwell, want some closure to this case.
So we got a picture here of Dr. Frank Shimwell, and here he is with whom?
That's him with his first wife, Mary.
Frank's wife, Mary, died of cancer in 2002. Within weeks, Frank started seeing his next-door neighbor, Penny Baird, and he married her shortly thereafter. So the case happens, you're here at the department, and tell us how it starts.
It happened on July 24th, 2006, a little after 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Our 911 center received a call from a woman saying that a house was on fire and that her husband was inside and she couldn't get to it. The firemen make it to the kitchen area. They recognize that there's a body laying on the floor. And what they notice immediately is that there are things piled on top of the body. So that was really the first clue that this isn't something that is accidental. They contacted a detective with the Kentucky State Police. He believed that an accelerant was used and there was soot in his lungs, so he was alive.
The person that would do this to an 81-year-old feeble man who had to use a wheelchair to get around and then couldn't even get up on his own is about the worst there is. It's about as evil as you can get.
That we're able to get a forensic anthropologist, and she can definitively say that Dr. Shimwell had been struck in the head with something.
Dr. Shimwell suffered separate blows to his head, which meant that someone knocked him upside of the head, down onto the floor most likely, and then put things on top of him to set him on fire like he was a bonfire. I can't imagine how painful that was of a way to die. So guys, let's start with Penny Baird, who's one of our suspects. She's his wife.
She's his wife and is half his age.
She's 40, and he's 81.
She's married to him 9 months after his wife's death.
Can we say at the time she married Dr. Shimwell, her financial situation was a lot different than his?
Definitely,
right?
Yes.
And that's even noted in the details of the prenuptial. She has nothing. Dr. Shimwell was well off and had Penny sign a prenup before they got married to keep their assets separate. But after the wedding, Penny worked real hard to get control of his money. She gets him down there and changes the trustees from his daughters to her. Then she revises will and puts her in charge of everything.
Any kind of prior criminal history?
Nothing that was violent, but she has had several run-ins with the police.
Before she married Frank, Penny had spent some time in jail for shoplifting. And before Frank's death, she was looking at going to prison for violating her probation. She apparently knows she's going to jail in August. We're not sure if any of this is connected with the murder, but it might suggest what kind of woman we're dealing with.
Okay, so let's put Chris Baird up here. Penny's
Son,
how old was he back then?
18, 19.
So if mom gets the money, he stands to benefit.
Right.
On the day of the murder, police brought Chris down to the station for questioning. Chris was evasive in answering the questions about where he had been just hours earlier.
When was the last time you were over at Mr. Shimwell's house?
Like yesterday.
You didn't see him at all today? Did you go over to the house today?
No, not that.
He wouldn't take a polygraph without talking to his mom.
And what happens when he takes the polygraph?
It was inconclusive.
Were you at Dr. Shimwell's house anytime before the fire started? No.
Polygraphs are not a perfect science and they are not admissible in court. But an inconclusive result will always make you wonder if Chris is maybe hiding something. Okay. All right. You want to do Tim?
On that? Sure. It's Penny's lover.
Yep.
At the time of Frank's murder, Penny was having a not very secret affair with a man named Tim Jones. I did add up here sex morning of.
He didn't say we had sex, but he insinuated.
Not hiding their relationship.
No, and he's his only alibi witness. He says, after she leaves, I'm home, watch Dr. Phil, or take a nap.
Right.
And I just happened to ease over. According to Tim, on the day of the murder, he decided to stop by Penny's house, and when he got near, the fire department trucks were already blocking his way. Not only is his story strange, but since he says he was alone, he has no one to corroborate it, and a pretty good motive to kill Frank if he wanted Penny all to himself.
A key thing, too, is that Tim had these little, it's like these little racing cars that take nitromethane, which is a fast-burning liquid.
Well, Penny claims in one of her statements that an empty bottle of it rolled out from underneath the seat of his truck or something like that.
She's talking about Tim having been the one who killed Dr. Shimwell.
When questioned by police, Penny told them that Tim had admitted he killed her husband.
I said to him, well, I think you killed Frank. And he said, I did. And what are you going to do about it? I'll take you down with me.
And we don't have him accusing her back when he hears that she's throwing him under the bus.
No.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Well, that's a pretty good start for the board. We have 3 suspects with potentially intersecting motives. The question is, did any of them work independently or together to kill Dr. Shimwell? We are going to meet Dr. Shimwell's grown children today.
Hi.
Catherine, Carolyn, and also Alan. Why don't y'all tell us about your dad?
He was very smart.
He had such a funny sense of humor and just, a real dry way of saying things.
He loved nature. On Sundays, he would always take us for picnics.
He was incredibly strong. We'd go on a hike, and we would get too tired to continue, and he'd scoop one up under one arm, and he would take off.
And his marriage with y'all's mom?
They had fun together. I mean, he expressed so much distress, during the time Mom was dying and afterwards about being left alone. He hated that.
Well, when was it that y'all first realized that your dad was even considering dating Penny?
I'll tell you when I first knew. Our mother was in the hospital and she was dying. And I asked Daddy, I'm going to get some dinner, would you like something? And he said, oh, don't worry about that. Penny's brought a casserole over and I have plenty of food. She was bringing him food already, before our mother was even dead.
And there was never a time where y'all went to confront her or individually had it out with her or anything?
Oh, yeah, we did.
I was going to say,
We did.
How could you not?
I don't know. She just had this gloating look on her face, like she knew it wasn't going to matter what I said, that she had this.
I think that's every child's nightmare for their parent. If they marry gold digger wife number 2 or 3, you don't like it. And you want to tell your dad, no, you can't marry her, but you can't. You can't stop him.
Thank you.
You have to hug me.
All right, I will.
But a gold digger is not necessarily a murderer. And I can't help but think that if Frank is getting companionship and care from Penny in return for letting her spend his money, then maybe Penny didn't have a motive to kill Frank after all.
about how old that house is. Dr. Shimwell was born there and was raised there, and then he had his kids and he raised them there.
Yeah. We're on our way to the house where Dr. Frank Shimwell was bludgeoned and burned to death in 2006.
Oh my God, look at that place.
It's a nice house. Frank's wife, Penny, inherited most of the assets after he died, but his children inherited the house, which they sold soon afterwards.
Morning, guys.
Chief?
Fire Chief Steve Kyle was one of the initial responders. Okay, let's go inside and tell us what all you saw. And today he's trying to help us figure out what happened. So when you got here that day, Chief, and you came in the kitchen, what all did you see?
It was immediately evident that this was the room of origin. This room had the most burn damage. Dr. Shimwell was in the fetal position with his head right where the oven and table came together.
We know Dr. Shimwell was found on the floor with 2 fractures to his skull and a filing cabinet resting on top of his body. The question here is, how did he end up like that?
Okay, so I'm Dr. Shimwell, and I'm sitting here watching my TV. First thing you think the murderer does is what?
We know there were 2 blows to the head.
So if you take blow number 1 and hit.
Okay, so he's down here on the ground.
All right, at some point, there's a second blow delivered. And you take this filing cabinet and you throw it on top of him, and then the books are piled on top.
And he's not dead, he's alive.
He is. He's still alive.
Wow.
Lying there on that cold floor with that chair filing cabinet put on top of me.
That's pretty cold.
I realized you can't get it off of you, you can't move, and you can't stop it from happening. You're just on the floor defenseless.
And that filing cabinet was where he kept all of his books.
2 of our suspects, Tim Jones and Chris Baird, were both strong men. But the doctor's wife, Penny, was only 5'4" and weighed less than 100 pounds. I'm wondering if she would even be able to lift a heavy filing cabinet.
How heavy is that?
If it didn't have much in it, it wouldn't be that heavy.
And that filing cabinet was directly in front of him, like a small 2-drawer filing cabinet.
I mean, think about it. If you have Penny who's 80 pounds, bringing it from a whole nother room all the way in here, but if it's in the kitchen, you just have to turn it over.
The filing cabinet was much smaller than I thought it would be, but now that we know how close it sat to where the murder happened, I don't think we can rule Penny out at all.
Once his body was removed from the scene, we found that the fire had burned all the way through the floor in an area near his head, and where it actually went through to the basement.
What does that mean?
That there was a flammable liquid there that could make that kind of burn.
Okay.
Often in a fire, the victim's body will protect the floor from burning. But in this crime, an unknown accelerant was poured on the victim's head and spilled onto the floor. So when the fire was lit, not only did it burn through the victim, but it also burned completely through the hardwood floor. We know Penny told detectives her boyfriend, Tim Jones, had an empty fuel canister in his truck, and police recovered accelerants from his house. But since the accelerant in this fire is unknown, we can't determine if it was Tim's fuel that started it. This is pretty much what it looked like.
Actually added on to the back of the home. But what it used to be was a gravel driveway that went all the way behind the house.
So somebody could park a car behind and nobody would see it.
Right.
Back when this murder occurred, someone could have easily hidden a car behind Frank's house. So any of our suspects could have committed this crime practically undetected.
That house back then was probably one of the nicer houses in Paducah.
Yeah.
And the fact that someone was murdered there, God, it's so sad.
We have 3 suspects and they all knew each other, so there might be more than one of them involved. We need to look at their alibis to see which of them had the opportunity to kill Frank.
Up here are the things that we think we know for sure.
We know that Penny had a really busy morning because she was running errands all over town.
I went to the post office. I went to Thomas Furniture sometime. I took back a vase. I went to Bernard Lewis's. My bracelet broke again.
It's almost like she was trying to be seen.
And we know that Chris was also busy running errands around town.
Chris gets up that morning at 11, goes to Salvation Army, goes to McDonald's.
What time did you go to Salvation Army? Probably took like an hour, I guess, from whenever I woke up.
Tim has the weakest alibi because he says he worked early morning, had sex with Penny mid-morning, and then he took a nap.
Then I took a nap, smoked a cigarette, and got in the shower. Watched the first part of Dr. Field.
I mean, he's his own alibi.
We're having a hard time making sense of the day, and that's when I realized that we're missing a really big piece of the puzzle. I had one big case where I learned the most I've ever learned about arson. The girl gets raped. She's set on fire on the couch. It was about 1 in the morning. The next day at 11 o'clock, there is no smoke coming out of any windows. There's nothing in flames. There's nothing that you can tell from the outside of the house. That many hours later, they go in the house, smoke is everywhere, but she's dead. But the point is that with a fire, You never know how long it's going to take with the smoke and the flames and all that. So all this up there we're trying to figure out, I don't think we ever know. It's just so variable.
Right.
Fires can smolder, so our fire could have been lit hours before the firemen ever arrived. And because we can't say when the murder occurred, we also can't rule out any of our suspects. We're going to have to solve this case another way. We are in Paducah, Kentucky, investigating the 2006 murder of 81-year-old Dr. Frank Shimwell. We need to focus on motive, and at first glance, it seems like out of our 3 suspects, no one had more of a motive than Frank's wife, Penny.
Why would Penny marry him?
Money. He said it's not a sexual relationship.
I thought like anybody else that sees somebody young marry an old man, it's all about money, I figured.
She's manipulated by money. I mean, that's all her concern was. She got a house, then there was a pool, then remodeling. And maybe some plastic surgery.
Well, obviously, you're a man that has a lot of money. He's your sugar daddy, but I think she took pretty good care of him, really. Probably more like a nurse would.
Instead of a husband-wife, okay.
Penny definitely enjoyed her newfound fortune when she married Frank. But if Frank was agreeing to that and Penny cared for him, then why would she kill him?
We're going to go try to track down Brenda. Brenda Thompson is a home health aide who helped Penny take care of Frank since he was basically housebound. She should have first-hand knowledge of their relationship.
I fell in love with him because, you know, he's just such a good guy, and I just couldn't believe somebody did that.
As your professional opinion, was he being taken care of like he should have been taken care of?
No, sir. Oh, it was terrible. The house was real dirty, and Dr. Shimwell was dirty. I don't know when was the last time she gave him a bath or nothing.
Is there anything that she wanted done?
She just called to check on him, and then, in the background you could hear music like he was at a bar or something,
This is interesting because it seems Penny's not upholding her end of the bargain in taking care of Frank.
Is there anything else that you can remember?
I'm gonna see 06.
Yeah.
My son at that time, he had a business.
Okay.
And she asked me if my son could get her son a job because he didn't have a job. She said, well, he don't have no money.
Even though she wasn't taking care of Frank, Penny had access to his money. Chris, on the other hand, was broke, so he could have been trying to hasten an inheritance.
Hello?
I was trying to reach Michael Buckley.
Yes, sir.
Chris claims that on the day of the murder, Penny called him about the fire and he ran over there to help. Michael Buckley was a neighbor who witnessed the fire. Maybe he witnessed Chris's behavior as well.
Tell me about that day.
I just remember mowing the lawn and a guy in a white van.
When you seen the van, where were you at?
I was in the front yard mowing.
Man, I really appreciate you talking with us today.
Have a nice day.
All right, you too. Have a good afternoon.
So there's 2 houses on that block.
Okay.
Dr. Shimwell's house, the front door is right here, and this house sits right here.
So he's looking at the front yard.
He's looking at it.
Okay. Michael saw a white van parked in front of Frank's house earlier that day. We know that Chris Baird drove a white van back then, but according to Chris, he never stopped at the house earlier that day.
Were you at Dr. Shimwell's house any time before the fire started?
Well, obviously there are a lot of white vans in the world, but I'm wondering whether or not Chris is confused or not being straight about being there at all that day. We need to talk to Chris to get to the bottom of this.
Think Chris will talk to us?
Who knows? After Frank's murder, Chris actually changed his last name, but we've tracked him down to living about an hour away. It's time for us to get some answers.
There are 2 cars at home. Somebody's walking out the door right now.
Hi, Chris. My name's Troy Turner. I'm a detective with Paducah Police. Nice to meet you. I'd just like to talk to you for a few minutes.
No problem.
Kind of go back to that day.
We were having just a completely normal day, and then, freaking, Dr. Shimwell's house on fire. And I remember, I was wanting to go in there after I seen, his house is, filling with black smoke. See, that's the part I remember really good, is just me trying to go in there. And I tried to make it into there as much as I could. No one could survive that. It made even, the seconds I was in there and realized, I had to turn back. It was horrible. It was a horrible day. The worst day of my life.
There was possibly a van that stopped by there. Do you remember if you had stopped by Frank's?
To my 100% recollection of how everything happened, we did not go by there.
Okay.
For anything. that morning, you know, for anything.
Chris is still denying that he ever went to Frank's house in the hours before the murder. I'm wondering if Frank's neighbor is just confused or if Chris has something to hide.
Why'd you change your last name, Chris?
Because I'm embarrassed. I'm still embarrassed to this day about this whole situation. Just a memory of just being thought of as a murderer. Like, I can't believe, you know, I even ever was thought of like that.
Does she
If you
ever...
ever knew me outside, you know, like, I'm super happy, you know, and I've always been, you know, but that definitely did put a damper on who I was, you know, at that time. Because that's something you just, you know, obviously you just don't do. You just don't do that in life.
Though Chris sounds completely innocent, we're still not sure what to think. Chris's wife Amanda is here, and she was with Chris on the day of Frank's death. We need to see if her story matches his.
Do you remember that day? Do you remember what was going on?
It's been so long.
We're talking to our suspect, Chris Baird's wife, Amanda, to try and figure out whether or not Chris was involved in Frank Shimwell's murder back in 2006.
Do you mind to just tell me what you can remember?
I mean, me and Chris, we were always over there helping him out. That's why one of the things that's hurt us so bad is because we love that man so much. And for it to ever be thought that we ever had any part of anything that happened to him, it's just life-crushing for us. Like, y'all don't understand. This is, like, really just messed our entire lives up. We still have the van to this day, so anybody can run tests on it because they want to say that the van was there that day. We're not getting rid of the van because of that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
in the years since the murder, Chris and Amanda have heard that Frank's neighbor may have seen Chris's white van that day. But they didn't get rid of the van, they kept it.
there's nothing that we could have ever done to hurt that man.
I didn't know Dr. Shimwell, but
He was a good man.
he, you know, no one deserves
He was
that.
so happy that I told him about Merry Christmas.
All right, well, thank you. That was interesting.
Moving away, keeping the van. Wow. Both Chris and Amanda seem to have been truly affected by Frank's murder. It's time for us to make a decision about Chris. He was righteously upset the very day of the fire, trying to save Frank's life.
It was a horrible day. The worst day of my life.
Chris's inconclusive polygraph
Were you at Dr. Shimwell's house any time before the fire started? No.
now seems more likely because he was a frightened teenager than because he was a killer. And while it is still unclear whether or not Chris's van was truly at the crime scene that day, you have to wonder if Frank's killer could have easily hidden the vehicle behind the house.
Somebody could park a car behind and nobody would see it. Right.
Would Chris have parked his van right out front to be seen by the neighbor?
Because they want to say that the van was there that day. We're not getting rid of the van because of that.
Chris has even kept that van all these years just in case the police ever wanted to examine it.
I can't think of any time I've had a similar case like that where somebody hung on something that long because they're worried.
What you can't deny with Chris is that even after all these years, he hopped in the car with us immediately. He never hesitated or avoided a single topic. He changed his name, he moved away. The effect that this has had on him is understandable, and his actions are completely consistent with an innocent man.
I think you can mark Chris off the list.
All right, so Chris comes off the board.
We are now down to 2 suspects, and we need to try and figure out whether or not either of them or both of them is responsible for killing our good doctor. We need to learn more about Tim Jones.
So we're hoping to catch Marcus and Janie here.
That would be nice.
Frank Shimwell's grandson, Marcus Floyd, used to work with Tim. Hopefully he can tell us whether or not Tim's affair with Penny could have driven him to murder.
Tell me about Tim.
It's just a slimy dude, man. It really is. Because him and Penny were screwing at the time, and you know he was reaping the benefits of the money. You know what I mean? They were going out getting boats and running around. They were up to all kinds of crap together into her, and this whole thing went down, and we ain't spoke since.
Now that we know Penny was sharing Frank's money with Tim, it gives Tim all the more motive to want Frank dead.
Okay.
Good luck.
All right.
We want to talk to Marcus's wife, Janie.
Janie, I appreciate it.
Who is also, coincidentally, Penny's daughter.
Penny is your mother, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you and her have a good relationship now, or what kind of relationship do you have?
I mean, I wouldn't say we have a real good relationship.
Okay.
I didn't talk to her for about 8 years, so.
Okay, so you haven't had much contact with her since the murder.
Right.
Who do you think knocked Frank upside the head and set him on fire?
Well, I mean, I'd always been real suspicious about Tim anyway. And just the way he kind of showed up over at Frank's afterwards. And just, I mean, Tim's just always real suspicious kind of character and what.
I appreciate you talking to me.
All right.
Tim Jones has a bad reputation, pretty good motive, and his story can't be corroborated by anybody.
Let's call it.
If we're going to clear up Tim's involvement in Frank's murder, we're going to need to talk to him face to face.
Hey, is this Tim?
Yeah.
Hey, Tim. This is Brian Laird with the police department. I've been working on this old Shimwell case. I was hoping that maybe you could just help me maybe get a better understanding of things.
Yes, I can.
There's old Timothy.
Hey, Tim. Not too bad of a day to get to work, huh?
You still see Penny any?
Nope, I don't care to see her.
Why is that?
Shit, that bitch is trouble. Yes. I'm waiting on you right now.
Who is this?
Buddy of mine.
Hello?
I would prefer him not even casually interrogated.
Apparently, when Tim agreed to meet with us, he also called a lawyer who wants to sit in on the meeting.
Eddie, Brian Laird.
I can't say how this is going to affect our interview, but given my experience with lawyers, I don't have a good feeling about it. We're talking to our suspect, Tim Jones, and his lawyer, or at least we're trying to.
I don't think y'all went the right way.
Okay.
I think y'all had your blinders on, so I don't think they'll ever find out what happened.
What was your understanding, I guess, back then, what direction the police were headed with that?
Penny?
There was a couple of times where the focus had shifted to you.
Yeah. Of course.
You know, the stuff that Penny was saying, she basically said that you did it.
Did you know that she had said that?
I won't stop it. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
We had just started the interview with Tim Jones, and his lawyer calls time out and wants to chat with him without us in the room. I got a bad feeling about this.
If you want him to say, I didn't kill Dr. Shimwell again, he's here to say that. But I just don't know enough to go forward with this right now.
Okay. We're just trying to figure out who killed an 81-year-old man and set him on fire. That's it.
Oh, Tim, he's a cocky one.
Yep, always has been.
So it doesn't really help us resolve anything one way or the other, what to do with Tim. It's frustrating. With Tim shutting us down, we can't eliminate the notion that he might know something, but we can't force him to talk to us. So now we need to focus on Penny.
Bill, this is Kelly.
Hi. Nice to meet you. One of the most damning pieces of evidence in any investigation is when a suspect changes their story. How are you doing, sir? So we want to find out what all stories Penny has been telling about what happened to Frank. I've had some good luck using reporters.
In 39 years as a reporter, I never saw a case that took so many twists and turns.
There had to be a couple of times where you hang up the phone going, geez, I can't believe she said that.
Yeah. Shimwell's first thought her husband's clothes caught fire from a candle.
Right after the fire, Penny said Frank burns a lot of candles and he caught his arm on fire last week.
So that's the beginning of her story.
Right.
And so her point by saying that you think is what?
That, it was just a big accident.
And then she said that she no longer believed that her husband's death was an accident.
So now we got a brand new story.
Yeah.
She kind of gave me the notion of she didn't do it, but she thinks somebody did it.
And this is a July 22nd, 2007 story. Shimwell returned to her original belief that her husband's death was an accident. And she talked about she didn't know the cause of death, came home and there were flames in the kitchen. It was almost out when the firefighters, finally got there.
She made a statement to me that she was with her husband and that he spilled alcohol on himself and then his sleeve caught on fire by a burner and he died due to the fire.
She was telling you that she's in the house when this happened.
To me, that's an admission that she was there.
At the time of the fire.
Yeah.
Penny claimed the fire was a candle accident, and then she said it wasn't an accident, that somebody else did it. She said she came home and found the fire, and then she said she was actually in the house when the fire started. Her stories are crazy. They're all over the place. But the question remains, if Frank is giving Penny everything she wanted, why would she want to kill him?
We know that while Frank was initially reluctant, Penny eventually convinced him to sign many of his assets over to her.
You can sit up front.
When you examine the financial documents, the same notary witnessed many of them. A woman named Denise Culp, who worked for the drugstore that was owned by Penny's friend. If she saw Penny and Frank discussing the money, she might know if those conversations ever got ugly.
The first time I dealt with her, she came in and said she was needing a notary, and said she had Mr. Shimwell. I went out to the car, and Mr. Shimwell was out there, and from that was the only time I ever saw him. From that point on, she came in without him and just wanted me to notarize his signature. She'd bring things in already signed, of which I know is wrong. Believe you me, I have changed my tactics.
Penny had an understanding with the drugstore and was always trusted when she asked to get things notarized. Denise was carrying on with this tradition, but was doing so with some pretty important documents. Okay, so this is a post-nuptial agreement where it explains that she gets everything, okay? Frank Shimwell's signature is on here, what appears to be his signature, and you didn't see him sign this?
No, I did not.
Okay. But that's your...
That is mine.
Okay.
I wish I could say it wasn't.
Would you normally sign this? I mean, because this seems kind of odd.
Not for anyone else.
But maybe for her?
Only because of the relationship.
With the drugstore?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Ms. Culp, I appreciate you being honest. It might have been an error in judgment, but it clarifies things for us.
Denise notarized documents that ensured Frank's money and assets would go to Penny. Thank you, Ms. Culp. Including their post-nuptial agreement without ever seeing Frank sign his name.
On July 10th,
Okay.
we've got those documents where she was creating the post-nuptial.
Since our meeting with the notary has called all of our financial documents into question, we're going back over the files. Tell me the exact quote on the note.
It says, I, Frank A. Shimwell, reject the post-nuptial property agreement.
We have evidence signed by Frank proving that he had become aware that Penny had drafted a post-nuptial agreement, signing his assets over to her.
I do not want my personal property and all my money to go to my wife, Penny Baird Shimwell, when I die.
A post-nup that he did not agree with and was actively disputing just 14 days before his murder.
Signed, Frank A. Shimwell.
That's huge. You gotta wonder if, especially because she knew she was going back to prison, Penny realized that her days of taking advantage of Frank were nearing an end. Have we hit all the high point manipulation of what Penny did?
Yes.
If she confesses, I'll buy drinks and dinner.
Paducah PD drove by Penny's house and observed that she'd gone to a local craft store. So we're headed there now to catch her off guard. We're just gonna catch her when she comes out.
All right. Yeah, I'm just gonna take my coat off.
Oh, man. How are you in Hobby Lobby this long?
Oh, Penny's very crafty now. She's making me like her even less. I didn't think that was possible. Damn, there she is.
Yep, she got her a new hip. Oh, got her a table, too.
Ready?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Hey, Penny, how are you doing? Good. You remember me? No? Okay. My name is Brian Laird. I work with the police department. Hey, man, you shot for a long time. Did you get some good things?
Yeah, pretty good.
Okay. I started working on Dr. Shimwell's case a couple years ago.
Don't really have not anything to say.
Okay. So you won't speak with me about it at all? We was just trying to clarify a couple of things that you were talking about with Tim.
You got 5 seconds to talk to me.
Okay. There was a time where I think you gave some details about some things Tim had told you.
That he had actually done it.
Well, this is what I can tell you. They put me on a lot of medication. And I can just be real honest and tell you, I dreamed that he told me that. I don't know if it was a dream or if it was real.
If that was a dream, it was a pretty, I guess a pretty
And
vivid
that's why
dream.
I felt like it was really real. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So I just don't know, y'all. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
This is the first time Penny has ever said her accusation about Tim committing the murder was a dream. Unbelievable.
I know that my hands are clear, my heart's clear. I didn't hurt Frank. I did everything in my power to save Frank that day.
You have some cases in your career where I call them yappers. You have some defendants that are just going to yap. They're going to talk no matter who they're talking to. And Penny Baird would be in the top 5. Every time she opens her mouth, she tells a new version of the story.
Okay, that was worth waiting on her to come out.
It was awful sweet of you to help her put those things in the car.
I'll do many a thing to get someone to talk.
That's right. That's right.
Who dresses you, man?
Penny's newest story is that when Tim confessed to her he killed Frank, it was all a dream. We need to take a hard look at Tim Jones and what we have against him. What do y'all want to do with Tim?
We're going to have a hard time completely Xing him off.
When he gets a lawyer and won't talk to you at the end of the story, there's not a lot you can do with it. We don't have any credible evidence to show that Tim was involved in the murder of Frank. But there is no doubt in any of our minds that we've got a circumstantial evidence case against Penny. You have all these financial documents and how she planned the whole getting married and the will and the post-nup. It seems clear that she married Dr. Shimwell for his money, not for love.
The house is real dirty, and Dr. Shimwell was dirty.
Penny not only wanted Frank's money, she may have gone behind his back to get it.
She came in without it and just wanted me to notarize his signature.
In the weeks before the murder, you gotta wonder if Penny realized her days of taking advantage of Frank were numbered, especially since she was headed back to prison and she had a lot to take care of before she left.
I, Frank A. Shimwell, reject the postnuptial property agreement.
And Penny has told inconsistent stories about Frank's murder for the past 9 years.
She was there.
At the time of the fire. And her latest version, oh my God, what a doozy.
I don't know if it was a dream or if it was real.
Look at this, this is fantastic.
I think it's a pretty strong case.
Go take it to your Commonwealth attorney. Go take it to him, let us know what happens.
All right.
We're gonna go meet Carolyn and Alan, Frank's daughter and son again, but Catherine can't come. This morning, Brian went to present the case to the Commonwealth attorney.
Hi, Carolyn.
And we're meeting with Dr. Shimwell's family to let them know what he found out.
So I briefly met with Raymond McGee. He's an assistant Commonwealth attorney. We had a meeting scheduled with Dan, but he had a family emergency. He wasn't able to attend. But Raymond McGee thought everything looked good, but, you know, we need to meet with Dan.
Okay. It's all up to Dan Bowes and his people now. We feel good. It's a good case. How are y'all doing with all this, Alan, Carolyn?
Well, it's been quite an experience.
It's been kind of hard to relive it all, and there's not been any closure for us because there's not been any justice for Dad.
Well, you've been patient for 9 years.
Right.
Try to wait one more week and then let Brian call you and tell you how that meeting goes. We want to finally bring peace to Frank and his children. Hang in there. A little bit longer. A little bit longer. It's time for the people of Paducah who followed this case for years, as well as when I first read the case, I knew right away we were going to be working on it because it's so sad and it breaks your heart. His whole story is so sad.
You know, he had a lot of good friends. He was very well liked. He was an only child. He was all his mom had.
This week we're in Cleveland, Tennessee to investigate the 24-year-old unsolved murder case of 22-year-old Stacy Dillon.
He was murdered in his home while his mom was gone for a week having surgery. I mean, he was shot. It looks like it all went down really, really fast. Stacy was shot at close range in the face. So it appears that this murder was extremely personal.
But he had some issues going on in his life that we're going to have to look into to try and figure all this out.
Stacy was gay. It would appear that he wasn't open about it.
I think we can appreciate that 24 years ago in a small town in Tennessee and you're gay, it's not something that you go around telling everybody about.
No.
Cleveland, Tennessee reminds me a lot of Blessing, where I grew up. The people all know each other. They all work at the same places. They all grew up together. I can only imagine the pressure Stacy must have felt to keep his sexuality a secret.
What's complicated is trying to figure out why someone would want to kill a sweet, innocent 22-year-old boy in Cleveland, Tennessee.
It's always a challenge when you have a victim who is keeping secrets from the outside world. Because first we're going to need to be able to uncover the truth about Stacy's life if we're ever going to uncover the truth about his murder.
It has been 16 years and still no answer.
Police consider her killing a cold case.
Years later, the case is still unsolved.
There are so many cold cases out there just waiting to be solved.
The crime scene ultimately tells the story of the murder.
We want to bring justice to these victims.
Good morning.
Hello. Good morning.
Hi, guys.
How are you?
Yolanda McClary.
Robert Harbison. Mark Gibson.
Nice to meet you. Hey, I'm Kelly.
Hey, Kelly.
Nice to meet y'all.
I'm Robert.
I hope y'all are okay, excited for us to be here, because we are.
We're excited. We're ready to get started and get this thing going.
Okay. Y'all got a place for us to work?
We sure do. So let's go.
Yolanda, get used to all these accents.
I know, I'm trying to listen hard, but it's all good.
Cleveland, it's a smaller city. We've got about 44,000, 45,000 people.
I've never been accused of having an accent.
That's because you haven't left here.
Got the Southern values, a lot of it based around religion. We don't have a lot of crime. It's a city that what I consider is very safe.
Hello, Mr. Derek.
How are you guys? Derek Fell. Nice to meet you.
Derek Fell is here because we've worked with him on prior occasions, and he showed us how quickly he understood that it's all about focusing on the little things. The questions, the detailed answers, those are the ways to solve a cold case, and Derek gets that. Okay, y'all want to start by putting pictures of Stacy up on the board?
Okay. The victim of this case is Stacy Dillon. At the time, he was a young college student working at a local company here, and he lived with his mother, a single mom.
Everybody pretty much said the same thing about Stacy, that, you know, he was full of energy, full of life, very, very sweet kid, putting himself through school. He really, really wanted a better life.
Mark, tell us about the first day of the investigation.
Okay. His mother fell and broke her knee, so she had to have surgery on her knee. So she'd been gone for about a week or so during this time. On March the 17th, 1991, Glenn Darnell, Stacy's stepfather, picked her up, returned home. He was inside the resident and turned the face right to the side of his nose.
Okay.
And it appeared to be a very close range, large caliber gunshot wound.
Okay.
What the ME's office seen, it appeared like he'd been there for several days.
Stacy's body was found Sunday, March 17th. And when police questioned neighbors, a witness said she heard what sounded like a gunshot on Wednesday night, which is also the last time anybody saw or spoke to Stacy.
Stacy is supposedly on the phone with Jeff Brewer.
That's the person, Jeff Brewer, that we're hoping can break this case wide open.
Yes, and the problem that has come up is that Jeff Brewer is deceased. There's other ways to
There's other ways to
the-
solve the case, we hope, but that's a big old piece that we're never going to get. Now, time to get to work. On the suspect board, let's start with Glenn Darnell.
He was actually the one that walked in and found Stacy.
Stacy's former stepdad, possibly soon to be again stepdad, right?
He had expectations of trying to work things out or try to get back together with Judy. I think Glenn was probably a controlling guy, liked all the attention that he could get, and if Stacy was taken away from that.
I think that Glenn blamed Stacy a lot for the problems that him and Stacy's mother were having.
So how about if we say resentful of
Resentment.
Stacy?
Yeah.
He was also physical by his own admission with Stacy prior.
Glenn had reportedly hit Stacy and his mother before, and according to a witness, had threatened to kill both of them at one point. So it makes sense why Stacy did not want Glenn in their lives.
So he's violent.
Right.
He's got a violent past. With them specifically.
Right.
Okay, next on the suspect board.
As Robert Houston III. Stacy was having a relationship with Robert Houston. And I think both of these guys had that concern of their lifestyle being discovered by parents and grandparents.
When police first questioned Robert Houston, who was Stacy's coworker, Robert admitted that they had a homosexual relationship. But Robert kept the relationship hidden, especially from his grandparents, who he lived with at the time and would not have approved of his lifestyle. He says himself he saw him Wednesday at his home.
Saw him night of.
Yep. He admits he's upset. He admits he's angry.
What information we had is that Robert Houston was wanting to keep that relationship going and that Stacy was trying to break that relationship off.
All right, Becky.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Like, I want to put Becky in red because we kind of got to have Becky. During the initial investigation, police received information from a confidential informant we know only as Becky. She claims to have spoken to Robert the night Stacy's body was found. What he said or how he acted could be crucial to the case. So one of the things on our to-do list is to track down Becky and find out what she knows.
Becky's got some good stuff to say.
That's what we're hoping.
We have 2 viable suspects in this case. Both had issues with Stacy and could be his killer. The question is, was it his resentful stepdad or his secret lover?
When's the last time you talked to Judy?
Monday.
Monday?
At this point, all she wanted is somebody to do their best and try.
Stacy Dillon was raised by his mom, Judy Dillon. She is in her 70s now. She's lived for 24 years without her son, her only son.
Hello.
Hi. Hey, Miss Dillon.
Come right in.
I'm Kelly.
I'm Judy.
Nice to meet you.
You too.
Wanda.
She has been a very passionate advocate for her son's case, fighting for her baby. And who in the hell can blame her? Tell us about Stacy.
Married his dad, and the marriage didn't work. So I raised Stacy by myself. I used to be so sorry that his dad didn't really want him. But when I got the divorce, I was so glad that I didn't have to share him that much. He did pretty good grades in school.
He was going to school in Chattanooga?
Yeah, he went to UTC.
Okay.
I've got some of the papers he wrote. The teachers wrote some of the cutest notes about his way with the words. He spoke the perfect English. I could not believe, as Tennessee to the bone as I am, that and he would correct me from a little boy. I used to just want to knock his head off. I was so proud of him. When I lost him, I would first wake up, and just for a second, you don't know. And it's just all over every day, forever.
So you understand that this is going to be a hard case. It's not easy. It wouldn't be sitting here 24 years later if this was an easy one.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I made my peace with God that I would probably never know. But I could close my eyes in death and rest assured I believe the Bible and I believe the law of sowing and reaping has never been broken. And whoever done it will pay somewhere. But it's just so good to know that somebody remembers my son.
Well, we are going to try our very hardest, okay?
Okay, we're going to go to crime scene. Obviously a different owner of the home right now, but they were willing to let us go in so that now we can visually see it. We're headed to the house where 22-year-old Stacy Dillon was brutally shot to death in 1991. Seeing the layout of the house will hopefully help us get a better grasp of the events of that night.
Hey, how
we doing?
Good.
All right, so this is it. You know, this is really different than what I thought. I thought it would be more like a residential neighborhood and not in this really kind of very cool woodsy area.
Yeah.
It's a cute little house. Let's go see.
Let's go look inside. All right, this is pretty accurate to what you guys have. Basically, this is just your open room, your kitchen, and then your hallway's literally just down there.
So the layout's what we need it to be.
Yeah.
Stacy went to the door. He felt comfortable enough to approach the door and open the door, and a person came into the residence.
Investigators found no evidence of forced entry, suggesting that Stacy let his killer into the house that night. Then the confrontation began between him and the suspect in the living room. In this living room, you actually have Stacy's broken teeth, one by a couch and one by an end table.
Right.
The teeth that are knocked out are right in this side. Now, it's not a punch, because to his face, I mean, Derek, really, if when I punch you, you're gonna have this nice bruise thing going. He doesn't have that. I almost feel like our suspect wanted to get that gun in his mouth, and he breaks those teeth. This person's mad. We all know this is very personal.
And that's kind of what I'm looking at. And he did probably get backed up in the hallway, and he ends up shot.
So you be the shooter, and you stick your finger out like you got a gun. Okay, so you come in the house, and like you said with the tooth theory. So, you know, if you hit me and knock my tooth out one time, lose 2 teeth, okay, you're still pointing the gun at me. I mean, I'm just going like this, you know, leave me alone, leave me alone, leave me alone. I'm backing up because you got a gun at me.
Exactly.
Leave me alone, leave me alone, leave me alone. We get all the way back here, right back by the wall.
He has nowhere else to go.
I can't go anymore.
You can't go anywhere else.
I'm cornered. Pal. He falls down just like this.
Crime, so.
It looks like there's some disturbance in the closet, like some boxes open.
Right.
So maybe our suspect went into that closet.
Yeah.
Possibility.
Possibility.
A strange thing about this scene is the only other noticeable disturbance appeared to be in Stacy's bedroom closet. A shoebox was open with papers thrown about, but with the cash beside it left alone.
Good job.
It makes you wonder if there was something in Stacy's closet that the killer was looking for.
What do you call those purple trees?
Purple trees. I
They
don't
sure
know.
are pretty.
They are.
According to our suspect, Glenn Darnell, Glenn and Judy pulled up to the house and wanted Stacy to help her out of the car. Glenn went inside the house and found Stacy's body, then went to the neighbor's house to look for help.
How you doing, sir? I'm Mark Gibson, Cleveland Police Department.
Yeah.
Jackie and Patricia Stanfield followed him back to the crime scene.
Do you remember 1991, Stacy Dillon?
Yeah.
Okay.
We lived right next door to him.
His stepfather, Glenn, knocked on our door and told us to call 911.
I went straight in and down the hall, and there he laid. He was cold as ice. He'd been dead for a good long while because he was turning black.
Okay. When you went back out, you went to the car.
I was just going to check on Judy.
What was her demeanor like?
She was very upset. It was her only child.
All right.
And she just wanted to know why the ambulance wasn't coming.
Yeah.
I felt so bad because I knew and I couldn't tell her.
Right.
Talking about Glenn Darnell for a minute, you're the one who saw him that morning when he found Stacy. Did you think that he was the person who committed the murder?
Well, I didn't know if he did or not, but I don't think they got along too well. I don't think they got along.
Okay.
There was not a good relationship between Stacy and his stepfather, and I think the stepfather kind of blamed Stacy for that breakup.
While we were down there at the house, he wouldn't go in the hallway.
Talking about Darnell?
Yeah.
Okay.
He said, I hope no one thinks that I did this.
One of the most important witnesses in the murder of Stacy Dillon could be a confidential informant known only to the police as Becky.
That's her truck.
That's her truck.
Yeah.
She claimed to have seen our suspect, Robert Houston, the night Stacy's body was discovered. So we want to see what he might have told her.
See somebody walking?
Yeah, that's right.
While she's only referred to in the report by her first name, we think that she's Becky Richmond.
I'm Mark Gibson with Cleveland Police Department. Do you have any idea why we want to talk to you today? Okay. You're not in any trouble or anything like that. Back in March of 1991, this young man that was killed, Stacy Dillon, apparently at some point you talked to a detective about a Robert Houston. Do you know Robert Houston? Okay. Do you remember talking to anyone about it?
Really?
Okay.
I really don't.
This is an old statement from 91, and we were hoping this is your statement. They were talking about Robert Houston. I met him when I went to work at Coppinger's. Am I saying it right?
Coppinger's.
Coppinger's. On second shift, we became good friends.
Okay.
So you never even worked at Coppinger's? We began to ask her about the specifics of this case, and she doesn't know what we're talking about. Oh my God, she's not our Becky. I mean, we just all assumed that was our real Becky. And if she's not our Becky, then who the hell is Becky?
How's it going?
You ain't gonna believe it.
You weren't there that long, so is that good or bad?
We have the wrong Becky.
What?
There's a lot of coincidences, but she's not the right Becky C.I. We thought for sure we had the right one.
So all day long we've been saying, what, we gotta have Becky?
Yep.
Yeah.
We gotta at least find Becky.
No, yeah.
The right Becky.
The right Becky.
The problem that we're facing in this case, like in many cold cases, is that back then the police weren't as diligent in documenting the reports. So there's no record of her true identity, and the officers who interviewed her have no recollection of who she really is. But we do know that Becky worked at Coppinger's photo lab with both Robert and Stacy. So we're gonna go see if they can search through their old employment records and try and find us her full name.
We're looking for your help. We're trying to find somebody who worked here named Becky from 1991.
Actually, 91, we weren't even Advanced Photographics then. I have everything from 96.
96.
I have everything from there.
So from 91 to 96, it just got destroyed or lost or, okay. Well, thank you very much.
We didn't have any luck with the employment records, so now we want to go talk to some former Coppinger employees. They might know Becky or maybe even be able to tell us about Robert and Stacy's relationship.
How do you know Stacy?
We met through the color lab. We were both working second shift at the time and just became friends.
Do you know Robert Houston?
We worked together, yes. We actually went to Red Lobster one night, but I realized he just wasn't my type.
Do you know what type of relationship him and Stacy had?
I didn't know they had one.
Okay. Do you know of anyone named Becky that worked at Coppinger's?
That does not sound familiar.
Did you ever have a clue that there was any friendship or relationship or anything going on between Stacy and Robert?
If they had anything going on, they never let anybody know it.
When's the last time you talked to Stacy? What was the conversation you had with him?
He kind of acted like something was on his mind. He was kind of quiet then. He told me that he was going to get somebody back. He wasn't ever specific of what he was going to do. And I remember asking him, did you get somebody back? And he said, yeah.
Stacy and Robert felt like they needed to keep their relationship a secret, and their co-workers didn't know anything about it or about Becky. But we did just learn that Stacy was apparently trying to get back at someone right around the time of the murder. The question is, who?
Andy Dill was Stacy's friend, and he had actually spoke to him just days before he was killed. And he may know who Stacy was angry with.
I remember the last time I talked to him, and that's
What day would that have been? Do you remember?
I know it was a few days before the police were out there. And I guess that's what made that last encounter stick in my head all these years.
What did y'all talk about? Anything in particular or just?
Well, he asked me what I was doing. I was working on my mother's car. And we just talked for, 30 seconds or so. And then he pulled out a recorder. He said, hey, I recorded that. And I said, really? Why? He said, well, you never know when you might need one.
According to Andy, Stacy was using a tape recorder to record conversations. It could be a young man playing a joke on someone, but it also makes you wonder, does it have something to do with this case?
Do you remember when the last time you talked to him or anything like that?
He had come by my house and he wanted me to go do something with him. I kept playing with something in his pocket. I kept hearing this clicking noise and stuff, and I said, dude, what are you playing with in your pocket? And he pulled it out of his coat pocket, and it was a tape recorder. I said, why do you have a tape recorder? And he said that he was going to record or catch somebody evil. That's what he told me. And that was the last time I saw him.
Did you have any idea who he was talking about?
There wasn't anybody that I knew that he associated with that I would classify as evil.
Did he have a spot or a place in his room where he kept things where he didn't want people to know about?
Maybe his closet. A shoebox or something. I don't know. For sure.
All right, thank you, sir. He says he probably kept private stuff in a shoebox in his closet. And
There is one.
in the closet, there's a shoebox
It
with the
looks like there's papers.
with the lid off of it, yeah.
It sounds like Stacy might have been trying to get revenge on someone by secretly recording them. And if he kept the recordings in his closet, it might explain why that shoebox in his bedroom looked disturbed. It could have been his killer trying to retrieve an incriminating tape. But what could Stacy have recorded to make one of our suspects want to kill him?
This whole case revolves around this tape recorder, it seems like.
We've learned that incriminating tape recordings may have been the motive in the 1991 murder of Stacy Dillon. But the question remains, which of our two suspects, Robert Houston or Glenn Darnell, would have been angered enough by our recording to want to kill Stacy? And we're still looking for Becky, the CI who's so crucial to this case.
Daryl?
Yes.
Hey, it's Lieutenant Harbison from the police department.
Yes.
Daryl Moore was a close friend of Stacy's, so we wanted to see what he knows.
Do you know anybody by the name of Becky?
No.
Do you know Robert Houston?
I really don't. That is not somebody Stacy ever even mentioned to me.
Did Stacy ever discuss with you like his relationship with Glenn Darnell, his stepdaddy?
It was not a very good one, I can tell you that. Apparently Glenn had a kind of a bad temper. I think Stacy always felt like his mom deserved better, and I know Stacy didn't like it.
Stacy hid his relationship with Robert even with his close friends, but he was not shy about talking about his strained relationship with his stepfather. It's time for us to talk to Glenn Darnell ourselves.
He has a lot of baggage with him, so it's going to be an interesting interview.
Glenn resented Stacy and thought he was getting in the way of his relationship with Stacy's mother. And we know that he has a history of domestic violence. But we need to find out if the issues between them could have escalated into murder.
Hey, Glenn, can I talk to you for just a second?
Yeah. We're going to go right here.
Okay.
All right.
Tell me about the day that you found Stacy.
Well, Judy still had the fouled up knee.
Okay.
I take her home. I think the door was locked. I think I beat on the door or rung the doorbell or something, and nobody come to the door. So I think she had the key.
You went back to Judy and got the keys?
Because I went back and got the key and went and opened the door.
Okay.
So I go in the house. Uh-oh. It's bad news, boy.
Okay.
And that's why I found it.
Okay. How long were you married to Judy?
I was married to her, I think, somewhere close to 14 months.
Okay.
But we was divorced at that time.
Okay. What type of relationship did you
Not
guys have?
very good.
What was your relationship with Stacy?
Well, we was okay, I guess, in a lot of ways.
There were some allegations of some physical stuff with Judy and Stacy. Did that happen?
One time we got into a little spout.
Okay.
And I kicked him in the rear end. That's the only time I ever hit him.
Okay. And you've hit Judy before?
Well, actually, I did one time, but it just, I didn't really hit her hard.
Okay.
But me and Judy was a problem. It wasn't me and Stacy.
Okay.
Did you have any reason to harm Stacy?
No, I didn't have the first bit of reason to harm him.
Did you kill Stacy?
No, I didn't kill him. I sure didn't.
Okay.
And I told people that. I wouldn't kill nobody. When I found him, it just tired me all pieces. I mean, it's down deep inside. It hurts me real bad. I'm sorry I can't be no more help to you.
You was plenty of help, sir. That's
I only know so much.
The best indicator of whether or not a suspect is lying is whether or not their story changes. When you're telling the truth, it's really easy to remember the details because that's what really happened.
I beat on the door, or rung the doorbell or something. I went back and got the key and went and opened the door.
Even after all these years, Glenn Darnell is very consistent with his story. What do y'all think we need to do with Glenn on the suspect board?
What impressed me is he told almost the identical story 24 years later.
He's really acted appropriately. He had issues with Judy Dillon, and really, we didn't get the impression it had to do with Stacy.
Glenn Darnell, 100% not guilty.
Glenn has acted completely consistent with an innocent person, and he was even honest about his domestic abuse toward both Judy and Stacy. It is clear to all of us that we can rule Glenn out as having anything to do with Stacy's murder. Now it is time for us to focus on our one remaining suspect, and that's Robert Houston.
Grandmother and grandfather spoiled him. He has plenty of places to go. It's just he didn't want them kicking him out because he wanted a certain lifestyle to live.
At the time of the murder, Robert was living with and financially dependent upon his grandparents, who have since passed away. But he also had a close relationship with his father, Bob Houston. Bob was known to have a large gun collection, and Stacy was shot with a .44 caliber handgun, so it is worth a discussion.
Do you remember Stacy Dillon being killed?
Vaguely, seems like I heard Robbie talk a little about it.
Did you have guns back then?
Yeah, had several handguns. I used to be big into handguns.
Did you ever
Have him come up missing or didn't know what happened to him?
I don't remember now.
What kind of handguns did you have?
Just all kinds of things.
All right. You don't recall having 44s?
Okay.
What is all this connected to?
Well, I will tell you, Robert was one of the last people to
See Stacy Dillon before he was killed.
He wasn't there when that boy was shot. I know he didn't do that.
Here's the thing. Again, we're coming back to this gun thing. Mr. Houston, we really need you to be as honest as you can with us.
My guns wasn't involved. My guns would do service. I gotta go to the doctor, folks. Good night.
Okay. Bob denied owning a .44 caliber handgun at that time, and there's no evidence to suggest that he ever did. So we don't have our murder weapon, and now we're running out of leads.
You know where you are?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. We haven't had much luck learning more about our suspect, Robert Houston. But there was one person in Robert Houston's life at that time that might be able to help us.
Hey, Nathan, you got a minute to talk to us?
Okay.
We need your help. That's his old friend, Nathan Kaywood. That Robert Houston didn't have a lot of close friends, but he looked up to you. And we're hoping that there was a moment, one night, hanging out, getting drunk, whatever, where Robert Houston told you what happened between him and Stacy. Did that ever happen?
No.
Why'd you hesitate so long to answer that?
I was thinking about it.
Here's the thing I know, Nathan. Look at me, buddy. I know you know something that's going to help us, okay?
I guess he didn't want the relationship to be over with.
Robert didn't want the relationship to be over with.
I believe that's what it was. I ain't for sure.
Do you remember Robert telling you that Stacy wanted to end the relationship?
Yeah.
Yes. What else did Robert tell you?
If as I recall, Robert was going to write a letter to his parents, and they had an argument about it or something. I think that was the last time he had seen him.
What was he going to tell Stacy's
The relationship and everything, I guess.
Okay. If Robert was threatening to expose their relationship to Stacy's mother with a letter, that shows you how angry he was about that relationship coming to an end. How did it end that night? He told you.
I can't remember.
You're still holding back on something, Nathan. I can tell, man. What did he tell you?
Oh, he didn't tell me nothing. I just said, I told him, I said, I know that gun you're talking about. And I said, you need to end up and do something with it or whatever else. And he told me he didn't know what I was talking about. So
What gun was it?
I can't remember what kind of gun it was.
You know, but how do you know about a gun?
I've seen a lot of guns in my life, man. I've seen a lot of guns.
I understand that, Nathan, but how many guns have you seen that killed people? Tell me about the gun. Where did you see the gun?
At his grandparents' house.
He showed it to you, or who showed it to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, what? He showed it to you? Look at me, Nathan, man. Come on. I mean, you're right there.
That was,
Nathan,
a
you're
long
right.
time before that ever took place.
Nathan.
Yep.
You think he was lying to you?
About the incident?
Mm-hmm.
Honestly?
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, as far as having any proof or evidence on it or anything else like that, no.
All right.
That's all I got.
Okay. Well, I wish you luck. All right, buddy. All right. Sorry.
Robert told him he was going to tell Stacy's parents, write a letter about their relationship, because Robert didn't want their relationship to end and Stacy did.
Yeah.
Based on everything that we've learned, we can piece together a theory about how Stacy was murdered. Stacy wanted to end that relationship with Robert, but Robert did not. So Robert threatened to write a letter to Stacy's mother outing him unless Stacy called off the breakup.
Well, Robert was going to write a letter to his parents.
What was he going to tell Stacy's
Their relationship and everything, I guess.
Stacy, in an act of desperation, threatened to out Robert to his grandparents. So he got a tape recorder and secretly recorded evidence of their affair.
And I remember asking him, did you get somebody back? And he said, yeah.
Robert, afraid his grandparents would disown him if they found out, confronted Stacy that night, where Robert admitted to the police they got into an argument. The argument escalated. Robert shot and killed Stacy and then searched Stacy's closet looking for that tape. It's a theory based on logical inferences, but we don't yet have witnesses to prove it. But there's one person who can help make sense of that story, and that's Robert. And it's time for us to go talk to him. They're going up a long driveway.
Hey, Robert, how are you, sir?
How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
What can I help you with?
Well, we just wanted to
Talk to you about the last time you saw Stacy Dillon. Do you remember Stacy?
Oh, Lord, that's been, 24 years?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Well, I'll have to speak with my attorney first before we can proceed with this.
He says that now? He lawyered up. Robert Houston asked for a lawyer, and at that moment, it means you have to cease the conversation. It's very disappointing because if there was ever a suspect that we needed to slip up and give us something, it's Robert Houston, and we got nothing. Dang it, you can't catch a break. Good morning, guys.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
All right.
Even though we feel that we understand the events leading up to Stacy's murder, we're still missing a witness with first-hand knowledge that can help us prove it. Our last hope is Becky, the confidential informant who saw Robert on the night that Stacy's body was found. We still don't know her true identity, so Rob is calling a witness who was in their world at that time.
Just get us a name.
Yes, sir.
We're talking about that Stacy Dillon homicide.
Yeah, Robert Houston.
Right.
Driving a Honda Civic back then, and me and Becky, there was a field across from his house there.
Becky who?
Becky, she was a CI back then with me.
Did Becky work at Coppinger's?
Yes, she did.
She did? Okay, I may give you a call back.
All right, buddy.
Thanks, buddy. Bye.
You know why you like that? Because he didn't even know he was telling you anything.
Yep. No.
He just slipped up and said her name. Thank goodness.
Well, I think you found your girl.
I do too. Good call to think to call him, man.
Becky, this is very, very important, okay?
Okay. We have one last lead on another Becky who we hope is the confidential informant we've been trying to find. Because without Becky, we do not have a case.
We're looking for a Becky that used to be a CI. We have a statement. You're talking about Robert Houston. Does that name ring a bell to you?
No, it doesn't.
Back in March of 1991, a young man named Stacy Dillon was killed. Do you remember that?
No, that rings a bell.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
We did everything that we could and followed every lead that we had to try and find Becky, and it just didn't happen. It's very likely that Becky isn't even her real name, it's just her confidential informant name. There's no way left for us to find out her true identity, so unless Becky comes forward on her own, she's never going to be found. God, I really thought it was her. Well, we've talked to all the witnesses. We can't find Becky, so we need to sit here and talk about what y'all want to do with Robert Houston.
Okay.
I mean, he's there that day. He says he's there. The motive is both of them basically blackmailing each other.
And they're nice words. They would be fantastic if we had Becky. Although the bits and pieces we've uncovered help us form a theory of how Stacy Dillon was killed, people can't be convicted with just theories and speculation. They are convicted by what we can prove. And in this case, there just simply isn't enough circumstantial evidence to get us where we need to be. Not yet, anyway.
With these set of facts, I wouldn't present it to them as a case that I would ask for an indictment or any type of arrest warrant on.
You know that already.
Yeah.
I agree with Captain Gibson. I mean, right now it would be a huge risk with not much of a chance to win it.
As of right now, we all agree that we're not quite there yet. Every little corner that we turned is some bump in the road, and
It makes you crazy.
yeah. I'm disappointed, but I think it's more of an injustice if you don't try than if you try and fail.
Well, Mark, you ready to go tell Judy?
I think we need to let her know as soon as we can, so.
All right, let's go. I used to have a file drawer in my office that I called my Waiting on God drawer. That was where I put cases where I needed something to happen that was out of my control. And that's where this case would go. And knowing that makes you sick. I don't want to go tell her. Go ahead.
Okay. I'll just let you know kind of where we're at. Did a lot of work, found a lot of people, talked to a lot of people. The bottom line is right now we're a little short of what we need to move forward. We had a lot of tough breaks. A key witness that we had a first name and that was it. We looked for her, it just didn't happen. So we don't have enough to proceed with any kind of criminal charges or any kind of indictment at this time. So.
I mean, I have to be disappointed some, but I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked.
Well, we hate to disappoint you.
Oh, in the beginning I was crippled, and I've always felt like if I could have fought harder, if I could have walked with both feet.
You couldn't have fought any harder. We wouldn't be sitting here if you hadn't been the strong lady that you are, pushing and pushing and pushing for your baby.
And we're not telling you that everything is going away. We're going to keep working the case.
Well, there's always a hope. And without a hope, you can't go on.
That's right. Correct.
I was praying that things would go well. And even though with a disappointment, I am so thankful to know that somebody that don't even know him would care enough to help try to solve who killed my boy.
Episode of Cold Justice. I'm John Walsh. As a victims' rights advocate for over 30 years, I've followed this program from the very start. I'm thrilled to be back with prosecutor Kelly Siegler and crime scene investigator Yolanda McCleary. These two amazing women have teamed up with renowned detectives and local law enforcement agencies to solve cases that many believed unsolvable. Tonight, I'm eager to get updates on a number of cases from the series. I know our studio audience, you, the loyal viewers, are looking forward to finding out how the law enforcement agents, as well as victims' families, are doing today.
After 17 years, of waiting and waiting, an emotion that's a great feeling.
We'll also take a look at the upcoming new series, Cold Justice Sex Crimes.
The door got kicked in.
He was saying, get up, and he hit me.
He was out to kill us.
Stay with me for more Cold Justice, Justice Served. First, I'd like to welcome the Cold Justice Investigative Team, the incredible Kelly Siegler and Yolanda McCleary. How many cases have you two worked together?
40?
That's a lot of time spent together.
We've been together pretty much for the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I'm married more to Kelly than I am Susan, actually.
Yeah.
Kelly is a former prosecutor looking into these cases. What new information are you looking for that can help convince a DA to take these cases to court?
So you're looking for cases with what I call a lot of play, a lot of potential, a lot of witnesses who haven't been talked to for a long time, who maybe their circumstances in life have changed to where they're going to say something new or different for the first time. So you go into a town with the idea that this case has a lot of play, and some of it's going to work and some of it's not, but you hope that enough works to where you can present the case to the prosecutor in a nice, tight, concise, strong case that'll make them happy to move forward.
And you really are the court of last resort for the victims, aren't you?
I think so, because they've been told you don't have enough, you don't have enough and they feel like people have forgotten them. So why not give it a try, and what do we have to lose?
We have victims all the time sending us emails, can you please look at this case? So the victims are very pro us coming in and trying to see if we can make a difference.
Absolutely. And I walked in those shoes of the victims. It took 27 years to solve my 6-year-old son's murder, so I know what it's like to wait for the cavalry to come in. But you're putting that spotlight on those old cold cases that have hit the wall.
Yeah.
Last year, the Cold Justice team worked with local law enforcement in Yakima, Washington. So let's take a look back at the case and see where it stands today. Early one morning in February 1997, young wife and mother Debbie Bailey was found shot to death in her car on a remote highway. Local law enforcement always considered Debbie's husband, Barry Bailey, to be a suspect in his wife's shooting, but there was never enough evidence to prove it. Despite the difficulties of the case, Detective Dave Johnson and Sergeant Judd Towle were determined to give Debbie's family, Carl, Pearl, and Scott Smotherman, the justice they deserved.
I felt compelled to work for them.
Phone records seemed to debunk Barry's alibi that he was asleep at the time of the murder.
A phone call came in at 11:19 to Barry's cell phone.
Last 43 seconds.
And with the aid of the Cold Justice team, new witnesses were found, proving investigators' original suspicions about Barry were correct, giving the team enough evidence to move the case forward.
You understand that you do have the right to remain silent?
On January 14th, 2015, Barry Bailey was arrested at his home in Idaho and charged with first-degree murder.
Carl, how are you? I am standing in front of Barry Bailey's house right now. I had an arrest warrant, and I arrested him this morning for the murder of Deborah. You guys give each other a hug, because I'm not there to give you one. And the hard part's still ahead of us, and that's getting him convicted.
Now I'd like to welcome homicide investigator and a member of the Cold Justice team, Steve Spingola, along with Yakima County Sheriff's detectives, Judd Towle and Dave Johnson. This case means a lot to both of you, doesn't it?
Yes.
Let me ask both of you, why did you reach out to the Cold Justice team?
You know, oftentimes, homicide investigators, you're so divided between your other cases. The ability to take something and focus on it for that many days with experienced people, it produces a lot.
That's what makes it work. You're forced to only work on this for our amount of time, and you never get the luxury of doing that, and it works.
The ability to have experienced people like Steve, experienced prosecutors, experienced forensics, all look at something and tell you you were either on the right track or not, it's very rewarding.
They already had a great case, and we just went back over it and took the list of names that Dave and Judd provided and re-interviewed everybody all over again, a little more meticulously.
And it's amazing how many people actually now, after a passage of time, are willing to come forward and testify.
Was he always your main focus from the get-go?
Yeah, he was the main.
He was the main person of interest.
Within the first month or so.
You never for 1 minute thought that he would confess?
No, I've never thought he
too
would
cold-blooded, too calculated.
Right.
He's convinced himself.
Oh, yeah. He's drinking the Kool-Aid, his own Kool-Aid.
You know, Barry's an interesting guy. He's a self-centered sociopath. It's like he's the victim here. And, you know, you just got to kind of flip on the common sense switch when you're talking to Barry and filter out half of his baloney.
Lots of guys that you've interviewed over the years are that way, aren't they, Steve?
Well, that's why they've stayed out of jail for so long. They're manipulators. I mean, they manipulate their wives, their families, and I think they even intimidate their friends to a point.
And is he out on bail?
You know, when his initial bail, because of such an old case, the bail was low, $250,000. But Barry can't stop talking.
He's so stupid. Y'all have him in custody. He still can't shut up. He's on the jail line, which tells you at the beginning this line is being recorded.
Correct.
And he calls up his own sons, who are victims of what happened, who he's lied to and manipulated their entire life, and tells the sons to lie to these guys and get their story straight when he tells them what to say.
And so we now charge him with intimidating witnesses, and his bail is $1 million.
Fantastic. Not as smart as he thinks he is.
He'll testify at his trial, too, the fool that he is.
Well, as I mentioned before, I know you have grown to love this family and have a bond with them, and I think it's probably a great time to bring out Debbie's parents, Carl and Pearl Smotherman. Really nice to meet you. Really nice to meet you. Really nice to meet you, Carl. First, I got to thank you both for coming. I think it's really important for the relatives and families of victims to be able to talk about it, to speak out. And you and I belong to the same club. We're parents of a murdered child. So God bless you for never giving up. You had faith in these guys that they were going to close this case.
That they were going to keep at it until we had justice.
Tell me how you felt when you got that call.
The first right off, I couldn't believe it. You know, I mean, just something that you pray for and that you hope for. And when it finally happened, I was just in shock, I guess, and was just elated. So happy that it's finally coming to maybe a close and justice is going to be served.
From the very first, well, I either knew that he did it or had it done.
I know that it's been a painful 18 years, without a doubt, but there's also 2 boys involved in here, your grandsons. I can't imagine the pain of this guy convincing your grandsons that he had nothing to do with it and that he was being framed and making that relationship between you and the grandson so strained.
He moved them away from us for one thing so that we wouldn't have any influence on them. And, you know, he went to Idaho. So during their young years, we just didn't get to have that much to do with them.
Maybe things will change with this trial.
It already has somewhat. When we went to a bail hearing, it changed. We got to talk to the boys.
They were our babies. They were our first grandchildren. And, yeah, we'll always love them.
My prayers are with you, and good luck with those grandsons. They're going to realize how much you need to be in their lives. Last year, in the episode Billy Goat Hill, the Cold Justice team worked with local law enforcement in Chattanooga, Tennessee, to prove that LeBron Hollingsworth killed his estranged wife, Vicki. His trial ended earlier this year. When we come back, we'll take a good look at the case and hear the trial ended earlier this year. So let's take a look back at the investigation and find out the verdict. Did the case hold up in court? In May 1999, the remains of Vicki Carr Hollingsworth were found in a wooded area outside Chattanooga, Tennessee, known as Billy Goat Hill. Vicki had been missing for 2 years, and her family was convinced that her ex-husband, LeBron, was responsible for her disappearance.
Sooner or later, it's going to come to a head, and justice is going to happen with this man.
And in January 2014, LeBron Hollingsworth was indicted for the murder of his estranged wife and brought to trial. On January 9th of this year, the verdict came in.
Adolphus Hollingsworth's demeanor never changed throughout the trial. Silent and stoic, even as he learned his fate.
Guilty of second-degree murder.
Step out. Clapping and cheering resulted in 2 of Vicki's family members being kicked out of the courtroom Friday. Vicki's niece, Dakia Carr, says finally, after 17 years, there's justice.
Whatever he get, that's what he deserves.
I thank God that that is one man behind bars that can't hurt another woman.
But Friday's conviction is good news for the DA's office new cold case unit, working to bring the killers and other long unsolved cases to justice.
We just got to keep after it, and it can be done. So that's nothing but a good feeling.
Now we have Chattanooga Police Detective Bill Phillips joining us to discuss the case and the trial. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Really good job. I got to ask you out of the gate. When you heard the verdict, what'd you think?
I was expecting that verdict. I think the right thing happened in the end.
He's someone that's had their freedom for a lot of years who shouldn't have had it.
How many years did you work on the case?
Pretty much from the time that Vicki was reported missing, so 17 years or so.
17 long years.
Right.
Why was it so important to prove to that jury that this guy had hidden his ex-wife's body?
If he was found guilty of second-degree murder, then the statute of limitations would apply.
When your statute of limitations is run for a second-degree murder, you can extend it out longer if you can prove concealment. And so by LeBron taking Vicki's body and concealing her on Billy Goat Hill, that gave us more time and extended it past the statute of limitations to where we were okay with the case.
Aha. Steve, let me ask you. You've seen hundreds and hundreds of cases. So you roll into town, you've got their support, you've got the DA's office support. Did you think there would be a chance to close this case?
LeBron was an intimidating guy. He was a tall guy. A lot of people in that town were afraid of him.
Oh, yes.
But, at some point, everybody just kind of ponies up and it's time to go put LeBron in jail because Vicki was a good person. She clearly didn't deserve the death that she died.
We did, in less than 2 weeks, what would have taken me months.
He and Neil Pinkston formed the cold case squad after all this happened, and he is now a convert and working on cold cases all over Hamilton County, Tennessee. Way to go.
Let's bring Vicky's son, Wesley, out here. Wesley Carr.
How you doing?
First, thank you for coming.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
I always say it's great to have victims' families around to talk about it. And you had the courage to go and testify sitting in that courtroom with what Steve said was a very intimidating guy, a big, bad guy that was your stepfather.
Yeah.
How was that experience?
It was tough, very tough to have not seen him since 97. And to be able to just see him literally walk feet past me is mind-boggling. Me and my sister woke up to a lot of yelling and screaming. Argument escalated to the bedroom, and from there he threw a pair of keys at her face.
Did he try to give you the stare down and intimidate you?
Of course.
Yeah. But you were thinking of your mother the whole time.
I mean, yeah, no problem. I mean, at that point in time, it's like, you know, we're here, we're in that moment. It's time for you to face reality.
You waited a long time to get up there, didn't you? Waited a long time to speak for your mom. So how did you feel when you heard that verdict come in?
After 17 years, you know, of waiting and hoping and wishing, you know, it's just an emotion that's a great feeling.
But your mom's looking down at you and saying, I'm proud of you, son. I'm proud of you for speaking up for me and never letting this case go. She's your angel.
Absolutely.
Just a few days after the verdict, I ran into Wesley's uncle, and he told me that Wesley's grandfather, Vicky's father, had passed away. He was unable to come to the trial because he was in the hospital. And your uncle told me he struggled until he heard LeBron was guilty. And so it was okay for him to go. And I think that just spoke volumes of what this means to all of us involved in this case, but especially to the family.
How nice. Grandpa hung in there till he got the word. Your mom would be very proud of you. Thank you for coming here today. Thank you for working so hard with the Cold Justice team, and look what you guys have done again.
Keep at it, Bill. Y'all know what you're doing. You don't need our help. You keep at it. Knock them out.
Thank you.
Now, in an episode entitled Sunspot Highway, we saw another case where a statute of limitations played a huge part. Stick around. Thanks for joining us on Cold Justice, Justice Served. Now, in an episode entitled Sunspot Highway, we saw another case where a statute of limitations played a huge part. Let's take a look. In 1987, young mother Margie Pointer disappeared from Alamogordo, New Mexico. She was last seen at the diner that she carpooled from, and investigators always suspected foul play.
So did y'all ever feel like Margie would have just up and left her son? Of course not.
17.
Her second-degree murder has run out, so our job is to see if the evidence warrants a first-degree murder element of deliberate.
After interviewing witnesses, Margie's co-worker and carpool buddy, Pete Mullins, emerged as the most likely suspect. The day of the murder, Pete showed up unexpectedly at a hunting lodge, less than 4 miles from where Margie's remains were found.
Was there anything unusual about him?
Yeah, I know he was scratched up and he had something wrong with his thumb.
He's trying to make him let go. Scratch. So a minute and a half of consistent pressure, never letting go. How is that not deliberate? This is a good case.
The DA felt that they had not met the burden of proof for first-degree murder.
She doesn't want to do it yet.
Oh, man.
Lieutenant Schoolcraft vowed never to give up.
You'll have to try to find some more stones out there that I haven't turned over yet. It hurts my heart. We're right there. It's like somebody coming out and stopping and saying you can't go any further. This is where it stops. Well, it doesn't stop here. I'm not done.
Joining us now is Lieutenant Detective Roger Schoolcraft of the Alamogordo Police Department. Was she always listed as a missing person, or was there any hint of foul play in her case?
No, sir. Originally, she was listed as a lot of our victims are as a missing person, but a lot of things just didn't add up right off the bat.
Her remains were there in the ground for 17 plus years.
Yes, sir.
How hard is that to get some evidence?
There was absolutely hardly any evidence whatsoever.
We didn't even have a complete skeleton. There was just pieces of bones that they found, some rib, you know, that type of thing, and I think a shoe that we never even knew really if it belonged to her or not.
So you had to go for first because of the statute of limitations on second degree.
Yes, sir. It was all or nothing.
When we went to tell Jeannie that day, as he started to tell her the bad news, you could see the devastation on her face. It's awful. I can't even tell you how awful that day was. It made me want to quit. I'm sitting there thinking, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore when it doesn't turn out the right way.
Roger, I know you've been working very hard to change the law in New Mexico so that no other detective ever has to give that same news to another grieving family. In fact, Margie's sister, Jeannie Dockery, actually joined you recently in Santa Fe. Let's take a look.
We are in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and we're trying to get House Bill 172 passed the state legislature, specifically targeting the state statute on second-degree murder, which currently has a 6-year statute of limitations.
We all feel strongly that there should not be a statute of limitations on any murder.
Next on the agenda, we have HB 172.
Most crimes of murder go to the jury with this question: is it murder in the first degree or is it murder in the second degree? And if they find them guilty of murder in the second degree and it's over 6 years from the incident, they walk out of the courthouse.
I began actively working the case as a cold case agent. We presented that case before the district attorney, and they said that, well, we feel like you have a really strong second-degree murder case on this subject. It left us dead in the water.
I don't think any other family should have to go through what my family has been through simply because of a statute of limitations. The person who murdered her needs to be punished.
Representative James G. Townsend.
Yes.
Representative Cheryl Williams Stapleton. Yes.
With the numbers of 8-0, we have it to pass.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I feel very proud. My sister would be very proud, so it's a good day.
I can't thank you enough for jumping out of the ugly world of fighting crime into the uglier world of politics. And where is that bill right now?
Passed unanimously through the House floor, and then the bill went to the Senate, and the bill stalled out in Senate.
So you're going to go back next session. You got to go through the whole process through the Senate, and all those people have to wait for the next damn session, right?
Yes, sir.
I hope the people of New Mexico watch what you guys did and make their voice loud and clear to that legislature. But let's talk about Margie's case. You have a plan B.
Yes, sir. I reached out to the U.S. Attorney, and I've heard back from them very recently, and it looks like hopefully in the near future maybe have a turn of events in the case.
Go hard.
Kidding.
No.
Oh my God, how awesome is that?
We got to say, usually the feds, the U.S. attorneys, don't come behind a decision on a state prosecutor's office. So for you to get them to do that, that is very, very rare.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
It's an honor. That's a good cop. So when we come back, we're going to take a look at some of the lighter moments on the road. Stay tuned. Justice served. We're here with Kelly and Yolanda, and also a couple members of the team, Steve Spingola and Alan Brown. I know you guys spend a lot of time with local cops like this. You get to know them in a short period of time. What's it like working with these incredibly shy, unopinionated, demure women?
Where are you getting your information?
It's
a lot. You got to have thick skin to ride around with this group.
Humor on the road is part of it, isn't it?
It is, and I think it's just a way of kind of getting through some of the, the rougher moments.
You also have to think about, when we go into town, like when we met Roger, he doesn't know us, we don't know him. So part of it is breaking the ice, making him feel comfortable, letting him know that we're not bitches and they're not jerks, and making him like us. So that's kind of the cracking it up thing.
Laughter is such a part of dealing with this stuff. So let's take a look at some of the lighter moments on the road.
4, 5, 6. If you keep, oh, how cute! That'd be a great blooper.
No answer. Some big dogs in there. Shoot.
20 step and poop.
Son of a bitch.
So ready?
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3. Oh, God damn it, 4. The best part was the goddamn it.
I don't want to be victim anymore.
She drinks Jack Daniels, though. You can't go too wrong if somebody drinks Jack Daniels.
There you go.
Hey, I'm a whiskey girl. Swiss ate me, George.
You would have ordered some Mai Tai or something. I would have slapped your ass off the bar stool.
Kelly, watch out.
Oh, you scared the shit out of me.
I made her eat turkey fries. Have you had turkey fries?
Do you know what turkey fries are?
No, what are they?
Fried turkey testicles.
Nice.
I'm so upset Zane is leaving One Direction.
You disappoint me.
You know how you cook them, George? But when you go to cook them in the deep fat fryer, you have to slice the ball open or it'll explode and pop all over your face.
Kind of like the way it normally happens, right?
What was that arrest for the farm animal thing?
That's bestiality?
Yeah.
That's not a crime in California.
We didn't try to catch up with you.
Oh my God, they can hear us?
Y'all didn't hear our conversation, though, did you?
Not just hear you, you're being recorded.
You forgot there for a minute that you were wired, right?
I did forget.
It's easy
It was a new experience for me, for sure.
That makes me think of one other thing. A lot of people on Facebook keep asking, where's Johnny Bonds? I talked to him recently about the idea of coming back, but Johnny, he's with Sherry and they're loving retirement. And when they retired to have a good life. We haven't been home for 3 years and we are working 14-hour days and this is not retirement, so.
And he really earned it.
Yes, he did.
Well, here's another case in which an arrest was made and it faced a very different kind of challenge. Investigators in Fort Myers, Florida, needed to prove murder without a body or a crime scene. Watch this. Rupinder Goraya and her husband Kultar emigrated from India to Fort Myers, Florida, hoping to live the American dream with their 2-year-old son. But in October of 2007, Rupinder disappeared. Kultar claimed that his wife may have left town to find a better job. But without her legal documentation or her son, that seemed unlikely. Rupinder's cousin Ravneet threw further suspicion upon Kultar.
He started dominating Rupinder and he used to hit her as well.
Working with Detective D. Stefanis and local law enforcement, the Cold Justice team reinvestigated the case from the ground up and located several new witnesses.
I'm like, you had to kill her? And he said yes.
Confident they had their killer, Detective D. Stefanis took the case to the state's attorney and in January obtained an arrest warrant. After the show aired, we had the opportunity to check in on Rupinder's son, Devin, and his adoptive family.
1, 2, 3. He has such an amazing personality, and he's so funny. I just can't imagine our family without him.
How is my grandma?
She always. Love you, hon. I'll call you and talk to you later, okay? Ravneet and I have become very close. We have a really different kind of bond.
And friendship.
And a very good friendship, yes. Thank you, Devin. I just wanted her to know that he was equally loved here. Sorry. I really.
Something stuck in your eye?
Yeah, something stuck in my eye. He's my heart.
The only positive side to this very sad story is, of course, that wherever Rupinder is, she knows that her son is with a very loving adopted family who stayed in touch. I mean, you know the system. Many times these kids get thrown into foster care, and this little boy's in a pretty good place, isn't he?
Definitely. So we went into the case thinking that he was in foster care and he couldn't be doing very well because it's foster care. And then we met the family that adopted him, and I gotta say, cynical old us realized that there are families out there that really, really do that for the right reasons, and he couldn't be in a better family in the United States of America.
So, big question, what happened to Kultar?
He is currently in custody, waiting to see if his case is gonna go forward through a plea bargain or through trial.
Good job on this case. Up next, one of the most disturbing cases featured on Cold Justice involved the murder of Lisa Bennett and her 6-year-old daughter, Kaylee, in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Stay tuned. Alan, you worked in a busy shop, Houston. Homicide detective, 25 years. What's it like working decade-old cold cases?
Cold cases are harder. They're much harder. You're dealing with time. Your witnesses disappear in some cases. People's memories aren't as good as they used to be. Your evidence, if you have any for DNA and things like that, is degraded in a lot of cases, so you lose that opportunity.
When we come into town to work on a cold case, the family knows, the detectives know that if we don't get to where we need to be, they're not going to open it up again in 5 years.
Right.
It's probably the last chance to do something with the case.
Nobody likes to tell them that, but sometimes that's kind of the way it really is.
Unfortunately, not every cold case investigation leads to an arrest. One of the most disturbing cases featured on Cold Justice involved the murder of Lisa Bennett and her 6-year-old daughter, Kaylee, in Fort Wayne, Indiana. This is a case that bothers me tremendously. Let's take a look at it. In Fort Wayne, Indiana in 1993, single mother Lisa Bennett and her 6-year-old daughter Kaylee were brutally murdered.
I opened the door and Kaylee was laying there, and it was just devastating.
When the police arrived, they found Kaylee strangled in the living room and her mother suffocated in the bedroom.
I just don't understand how you can hurt a baby.
After speaking to witnesses, one of Lisa's former boyfriends emerged as the prime suspect.
I know she said that he pregnant her and said he was gonna kill her.
And his alibi quickly fell apart.
Franklin says that after you got high, you went out to a club.
That's a lie.
The Cold Justice team hoped that DNA evidence could help strengthen the case.
If this case doesn't come back with DNA, I'm going to cry.
In 1993, DNA testing was limited to biological fluids only. But today, technological advances have made it possible to get positive DNA results from something as slight as the touch of a hand. But the results proved devastating.
With the age of this crime scene, unfortunately, most of it is inconclusive. The plastic bag has more than 5 male contributors.
The team had to let Lisa and Kaylee's family know that the case would never be prosecuted.
The DNA evidence actually hurt us being able to go any further with the case.
So he's gotten away with it. Come on, Jackie. Come on. I can hear my daughter. I can close my eyes and hear her voice. And Kaylee, too. Those are my angels.
Oh, I gotta say, when a child is involved, it's a different ballgame, isn't it?
Oh, yes, it is.
That day, sitting there in that living room, telling that mother and that sister that we didn't get there, I can't hardly think of a worse time in my career.
And in this case, DNA was the double-edged sword, Yolanda, wasn't it?
It was. They didn't look at evidence back then like we would today.
No.
Okay, they would just touch a bag or touch the nightgown she was wearing without realizing, oh gosh, 20-something years later, I can do something with this. I mean, who would have thought that's what you had to do? Exactly.
When you have that many different unknown male contributors on that important of pieces of evidence, you have beyond a reasonable doubt 35 times.
Right. We're going to be joined right now by Lisa's sister, Jackie, and Jackie's 3 daughters, Tracy, Lindsay, and Nicole. Nice to meet you, Jackie. They have all said, with tears in their eyes, the toughest thing they've ever done on this show is to tell you guys that the case was never going to go anywhere. How are you dealing with that?
It's hard.
What really broke my heart the most was looking at your mother.
Yeah. My mom is a very strong individual.
I looked at her grace and her courage, and I said, I can't imagine being in her shoes, losing a daughter and a granddaughter.
Look at that little girl there. How could somebody do?
It's incomprehensible to me.
One day, whoever did this, they'll pay. You know, it may not be here on Earth. They're going to pay.
That's right.
You have to believe that.
God will be his avenger.
Does that have a significance, the purple ribbon?
Yes.
What is
This
that?
is in memory of Kaylee. It's a daycare she went to. They had a candlelight thing for her and gave everybody ribbons.
Now, you mentioned that social media was very important to you after the episode first aired. And you got a lot of support from viewers. So what did people say?
I mean, as soon as the show started that night, there was just comment after comment for days and days and days. And just so many people saying they were with our family and, you know, just felt so bad with us. And, you know, some person wrote America's mourning with your family today. And it's so touching to all of us. It was overwhelming.
You've done an incredible job keeping your sister and that little girl's memory alive. When we return, we'll get a sneak peek at the new series, Cold Justice Sex Crimes, and meet the 2 investigators who'll be working to solve those cases. It's going to be a great new show. Stay with us. Welcome back to Cold Justice, Justice Served. Since 1980, there have been more than 200,000 murder cases in the U.S. that remain unsolved. But did you know that each year there are nearly 300,000 victims of sexual assault? Now, according to some estimates, less than a third of reported sexual assaults are ever prosecuted. There's currently a backlog of hundreds of thousands of untested rape kits in this country. That's unacceptable. So that's why the success of
that has to be stopped.
That night, I came so close to death.
When you kill someone, you take their life. But when you rape somebody, you take their soul.
I was so scared that it felt like somebody punched me. I couldn't breathe. I remember his eyes. They weren't normal. Like, he was definitely on some kind of drug.
I think that home invasion sexual assault are the scariest crime there is.
The door got kicked in.
He was saying, get up, and he hit me.
He was out to kill us.
Next thing I knew, he'd ripped my underwear off, and I started trying to get away.
This show will result in solving cases.
Just judging by how violent some of these sexual assaults are, the only way to stop these guys is to put them in a prison cell.
A rapist will continue to rape until he's stopped. We can stop him.
Please welcome former Harris County, Texas prosecutors Casey Garrett and Alicia O'Neill. Really nice to see you. Really nice to see you. Okay, Kelly, is this nepotism? Are these gals related to you? Or no, you've worked with them.
I met them when they were in their 20s and they were babies and watched them grow up in their life and their career. And when it came time to find people to work on this show, I couldn't think of 2 better people in my entire career than these 2 right here.
Wow, what an endorsement.
She was really like a mentor to me at the DA's office. She was larger than life. She was an incredible trial lawyer.
And she ended up being really a big sister to me. I can pretty much trace every good thing that ever happened to me in my career to her.
She's got a heart the size of Dallas.
Wow. So she really is not just a legendary prosecutor, she's a mentor.
She is.
We were together at the office in the 90s, and that was very much a decade when women were breaking into a law enforcement type profession, having to find that balance as a female lawyer that, that men don't have to think about.
You want to be assertive, not aggressive.
You're a lady first, and then you go out and kick ass.
Exactly.
What motivated you to take this job? You both have successful careers. You worked in the prosecutor's office.
It just was an opportunity to do what we did at the DA's office, which was help people,
right.
And just really give sexual assault victims a voice and encourage them to come forward, give them a safe place to tell their story, and hopefully catch some bad guys in the process.
And why do so many rape kits go untested?
Resources. I mean, that's the simple answer. Funding. These agencies, they care about their cases. They care about their victims. They just don't have the money to go back and test all these kits.
They all pretty much work out of the state labs. That's where you get a lot of your time lag, is the labs are just inundated with work.
And if a rapist isn't caught because a rape kit isn't tested, what are the odds he's going to rape again?
Their recidivism rate is very high. Basically, they're going to keep raping women until we catch them.
They're working cold cases on homicides. You're working cases where the victim is alive. Sometimes the victim is very cooperative. Sometimes the victim has been in therapy for years and said, I just can't go through this again.
Victims don't come forward because we still live in a society in America where we blame the victim. It's staggering, really, but it happens all the time. And so who can blame them for thinking, you know what, my life would be a whole lot easier if I just tuck this away and move on? Please don't do that. If you don't want to do it for yourself, do it for the future victim.
Next victim.
Right.
Yeah.
The biggest difference between what we're doing and what they're doing is we have cold case murders where our murderers have sat there for 10, 20, 30 years, and they haven't killed anybody else, okay?
Yeah.
Every day that ticks by that they don't test a rape kit or work on a case, that rapist is going to rape somebody else. So really, there's more pressure. It's more intense. There's more to lose to satisfy.
The clock is ticking.
Yeah. It's harder for them than it is for us.
And that's why you put this SWAT team together.
They're tough.
And you did a good job because you've already had how many successes? You haven't even been on the air yet.
We arrested 5 people on 6 cases. The DA was real pleased with everything and real eager to file the cases.
They're kicking some butt already.
You're making your mentor proud. You're making a huge difference out there. Go out and get these bastards before they hurt somebody else. So before we go, I want to thank you all again for sharing your insights and how you work these cold cases. Well, you've made a huge difference in a lot of people's lives. And we'll leave you tonight with a first look at a case the Cold Justice team is working on right now. Thanks for watching. Good night, everybody.
911, where's your emergency?
I can't get in the house with my husband. It's the fire, and I can't get in there to him.
The firemen make it to the kitchen area, and what they notice immediately is that there are things piled on top of the body.
Someone knocked him upside of the head.
So if you take blow number 1 and hit,
and then put things on top of him to set him on fire like he was a bonfire.
bắt vào tay thằng ấy. Không chịu đâu nhé. Kèo nhậu rồi đấy. Quay video làm bằng chứng rồi vẫn còn không nhớ. Giờ Khánh quay video thế đứng bắt tay giữa thang máy thế rồi còn không nhớ chịu. Không chịu được đâu. Hả? Mình không nghĩ bạn bắt tay. tay chịu thôi. Mình mất view luôn thế đó. Sáng lên mình mất view luôn. Các bạn giờ cắn căng phết gì vậy? Cắn tập đấy xong rồi tập kia lên từ từ.